Hey there, Python programmers. Today we're going to keep working on our tic-tac-toe game. So our method for today, we are going to work on the check for win. Again, we'll eventually get to the computer move and the minimax, but we want to get the game working with human players so we can test out the functionality in our code before we dive into the computer automation. And to be honest, check for win is going to be one of the most important functions. Obviously, like again, it's going to tell us if we've won, but eventually we're going to be able to use it with the minimax to make it so that our computer can check if it's won the game with its move. And that's going to allow us to make a really, really smart computer. So before we write the code, let's just kind of conceptually, what do we need to do here? We are going to have our game board and we have to check if there's any scenario where one of our players is winning. Now, some of this we can do iteratively. Like, again, we'll be able to check the rows and columns somewhat iteratively, but honestly, the diagonals, we're kind of just going to have to hard code it. But again, this is going to be probably our most important method. So let's jump in. Always want to add our docstring, and this is the method to check if there is a win on the game board. Cool. And again, we can do this step by step. So the first one, let's go ahead and check our rows. For, you can just call it val, short for value, range. And again, our board never changes, so we can kind of really, set up these ranges. So for this one, I'm going to set a range that starts at 0, goes up until 9, and does steps by 3. So basically what it'll do is it'll do 0, 3, and then 6. And again, we don't get to the end point, so it's only going to do those. And then basically when we do that, we'll check what +1, +2, and +3 is from that index. Cool. So we're going to say if self for at our val, and if that equals self.board again, at our val +1, and then that also has to be equal to self.board d and val +2. B-O. Definitely having some struggle spelling for today. Cool. So again, this scenario is saying if this value equals this value and equals this value, we have a win in the first row. And as we iterate through, it'll check the second and the third row. So if we do have one of those wins, well, we're going to have to now check another condition. If our self.board at, and this can just be at val, equals an x, we're going to want to return x, and we're going to return the value that's winning. And we also need to do if self board at val equals an O, we're going to want to return that O. O-A-R-D. Cool. And again, the reason we want to do this is right off the bat, technically, or like again, the empty board, everything is going to equal everything and it would pass every single check. It's only if these three things equal each other and any one of them is an X or an O, that means that all of them have to be an X or an O, and then that's actually a win. Cool. And maybe we can just throw a little comment in here too, just to remind us that this is going to check the rows. Cool. So next up, well, we're probably going to want to check those columns. We're going to do for val again in a range, and this range can just be a simple one up to 3, because again, we only need 0, 1, and 2 for our indexes. if our self.board add val, again, gonna look pretty similar to what we did above, only we're gonna have, bigger added jumps, if that makes sense. So we're going to need to add val plus 3 to get the second row value. And then we'll need a plus 6. Oops, that's going to need a self.board plus 6. So again, what this is going to do is look to see that these values are the same, these values are the same, these values are the same. And remember our index, so if val is 0, plus 3 would get us to that third index, and plus 6 would get us to that last row's index, or column index. Cool. So again, it's really going to be the exact same as this code here, so no reason why we can't do a copy paste. And again, we want to remember that only if there's an actual value, because again, from the very beginning in an empty board, these would all equal the same thing. Cool. Next up, this is going to be our diagonals. Let's keep going with our comments here. Check the C-O-L-S. And so again, if we've already checked the rows and we've checked the columns, check diagonals. So again, for this one, it's going to be no iterating needed. We just need to really hard code self.board add 0. It's going to need to equal self.board 4, and that's going to need to equal self.board at 8. And so that would be if this value and this value and this value are all the same. And what we can do is just tack on an or here and really work it the other way. So self.board at 2 going to have to equal at 4 again, always dealing with the center. And then that will need to equal our self.board at the value of 6. Definitely a long if statement here, but again, really, I haven't found a better way to check these diagonals. So the one we just did is the 2 values, 0 value, and 6. Those are our diagonals. And now again, we're going to have the exact same thing where once we've passed this if, we need to go ahead and check to see if we've got a value of X or O in there. All right. So now there are two other things we're going to want to do here, because again, we want to make it so this doesn't just check for, if one of them's winning, but also, do we have a tie? So if we haven't selected any of these ifs so far, technically, it could mean that we don't have any more moves, but there's no win, so we would need to report a tie. Let's do a check for tie. And I'd say the best way to do that is if there are no longer any empty spaces in our list, well, that would definitely mean that the board is full. And if none of those scenarios have resulted in one of these wins from above, but the board is full, we're going to have a tie. So we can just say, yeah, basically empty string is not in our self board. At that point, again, there are no more empty spaces, right? Every one of these have been filled up with a value, but we haven't won, so we have to be in a tie. Let's go ahead and return the string of tie. And then the last thing is if somehow we got all the way through here and we didn't hit a single return, well, basically that means that no one has won, but the game isn't in a tie or over yet. There's still things to play. Again, we're going to call this method each time one of our human players makes a move to check to see if the move they made won, but we're also going to be able to have the computer call it so many times to check if its next play is going to result in a win or loss. So if There's no X winning or no O winning or no tie. We just want to return none because that's going to tell us, hey, there's currently no winner. And that's all we really need for our check for win. Again, this is probably the most important method we write here because, again, it's going to be for our computer AI, but also we need it for our human player. That's all for this one. Next up, we'll come back and finish off play game, and then we'll be able to test out playing with humans. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I will see you soon, Python programmers.